This is breaking news coming in on our top story this evening. The Press Club of India has now stepped in to condemn the income tax raids on BBC offices in Delhi and Mumbai. They are calling it part of a series of attacks on the media by the government agencies in recent times. The Press Club is also calling it a clear case of vendetta for the BBC's recently released documentary on Prime Minister Modi. Let me go straight across to Vinay Kumar, who is the Secretary General of the Press Club of India, who is joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Vinay Kumar, thank you very much for your time here on Mirror Now. Some tough words there for the government. Why are you saying this is part of a series of attacks on the press in India?
Look, we have not named the organizations. Bhaskar, and other organizations where such surveys and raids conducted. So this is also very fresh in memory. If you see from 2021, such surveys and raids have happened on media organizations. So our concern is that, being the world's largest democracy and our reputation will be tarnished at a time when we are hosting G20 summit in India. The timing is very crucial. So that is why we have pointed out these things to the government. We are not against any rule of law. We prevail if there is any discrepancy, if there is any violation. Such matters are very sensitive, and the timing is such that such an action by the Income Tax Department comes just weeks after when BBC had aired these two-part documentary on India and 2002 Gujarat riots. So that is what we have pointed out factually. So we want that, these matters should be dealt with utmost care and sensitive nature. And the similar sentiments, I think, have also been echoed by the Guild of India, who have also issued a statement, I think, on this matter. So our concern is the same, that we should be handling such matters. The government and government agencies should be handling such matters with utmost care and sensitivity.
Mr. Vinay Kumar, we leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much for joining us. Madhav, you're joining us on the broadcast as well. The Press Club of India now stepping in to write to the government saying that such cases need to be, sensitively handled. Look at the timing. India's hosting the G20. What is the sort of message this is sending to the world, etc., etc. I'm fairly certain the government was mindful before the agencies, mindful of all these facts before the agencies went ahead and decided to raid offices of the BBC in Mumbai and Delhi.
Well, certainly the agencies would know what they're doing, and of course, whoever would have made this call would have been very, very aware of the optics that and the controversies that it could potentially generate, because all of this is happening in the backdrop, as it was stated by the previous speaker, of the two-part documentary series related to PM that the BBC had attempted to air internationally at least, and was blocked online by the government of India, although it was not formally banned. And that, of course, had led to a series of incidents where it was screened by students in different universities across India. So there was already a backdrop on this. It had gone to the Supreme Court. The court had gone ahead and cleared all of those actions as well. All of those aspects were one part of it. But coming as it does in the wake of a series of controversies last week as well, many would also question the timing, given that it is happening a day after the first half of the budget session ended just yesterday in Parliament. And therefore, of course, many would raise questions as to whether all of this was happening. The timing of this on those multiple counts is curious. And it's not just the Press Club of India that is raising these questions. It is also the Editors Guild that has said that at least 4 digital news organizations have been raided from 2021 onwards. And therefore, this is going to raise some serious questions about whether at some level or the other, the freedom of the editorial departments and the editorial sections of these news organizations to report on news is there or not. And that line certainly should not be crossed, although there should be rule of law. The IT department, however, has come out and clarified, sources indicating that there are very serious charges, that notices have been given several times to the BBC as far as transfer pricing is concerned. And that pretty much involves the subsidiary of the larger, company, that the holding company that is there in India for services provided, the payments that have been made, if they are just taken as a notional payment or if the physical payment happens or not. That's really where the taxation issues arise when it comes to the BBC. The BBC's own statement puts out the fact that they are in touch with the tax officials. They hope that these issues will be resolved soon. So one will really have to wait and see how this entire investigation or probe proceeds. The IT department has also been at pains to say that these are not raids, that these are surveys that are currently being conducted, and therefore, of course, there is a marked difference in terms of the action that they are actually taking on ground. Meanwhile, the raids only continue on ground. Shreya.
We'll leave it there for the moment, Madhav. Thank you very much for that very quick update. Now, petty, vengeful and undemocratic. 3 words that sum up what the central government is doing to the BBC. This afternoon, income tax officials turned up at the BBC offices in Delhi and Mumbai. They seized phones and laptops of journalists working there. The IT department says these are surveys and these are not raids. They say the BBC has flouted rules on profits and pricing for years now. The opposition says these are revenge raids carried out by the Income Tax Department for the BBC's recent documentary on the Gujarat Traids. It's not about tax evasion or tax irregularities. It's all about attacking freedom of press, they say. They point to the timing. The raids have come exactly a day after Parliament has adjourned. So it was planned in such a way to avoid backlash in both houses. Talk about perfect planning. The opposition parties have ripped into the government for this intimidating tactic. The Congress says they asked for a probe on Adani, but got a raid on the BBC instead. Listen in.
यहाँ हम जेपीसी की मांग कर रहे हैं अडानी के मामले में, और वहाँ सरकार बीबीसी के पीछे पड़ी हुई है. विनाशकाले विपरीत बुद्धि.
मी तुमच्याशी बोलत असताना या बातमीच्या सोबतीने बीबीसीच्या कार्यालयावरती दिल्लीमध्ये धाड पडलेली आहे, धाड टाकलेली आहे, ही सुद्धा बातमी चालू असेल, कारण मी टीव्ही आता बघितलेलं नाहीये. एखाद्या प्रसार माध्यमाच्या कार्यालयावरती धाड टाकणं हे कोणत्या लोकशाहीत बसतं? म्हणजेच काय की आम्ही वाटेल ते करू, पण तुम्ही आवाज नाही उठवायचा. जर आवाज उठवाल तर चिरडून टाकू. ही जी एक पाशवी वृत्ती आपल्या देशामध्ये आज फोफावायला बघते, ती आपण वेळेमध्ये एकत्र आलो नाही आणि आपली ताकद वाढवली नाही तर उद्या संपूर्ण देश खाऊन टाकेल.
Now, last year during his Independence Day speech, Prime Minister Modi made a bold claim. He called India the mother of democracy. Question is this how democracy's mother treats media houses, with threats and raids? We are presiding over the G20 this year. We are selling our model of democracy to the world. But within our borders, the government is raiding one of the biggest media companies in the world. And remember, the BBC isn't just any media company. It is funded by the people of Britain, a country which India calls a strategic partner. But let's forget the diplomatic implications for the moment. Let's focus on what the government was trying to do. Like the Home Minister once said, let's understand the chronology. Chronology samjhiye pehle. First, the BBC released its documentary on Prime Minister Modi. It's called The Modi Question. It accused him of engineering the Godhra riots of 2002. It also accused him of trying to destroy India's secular fabric as Prime Minister. How did the government respond? Well, by blocking the documentary on social media, on YouTube and on Twitter. When students tried to organize screenings at their colleges, power supply was cut off. Some of them were arrested from campuses. So in one word, the government overreacted. Days later, the centre got busy. They had to firefight the Adani report and the parliament chaos over the China border situation. So the BBC issue skipped under the radar. But once parliament adjourned, and it adjourned just yesterday, the government, well, turned on the BBC. The very next day, these so-called surveys have happened at BBC's offices. Surely this is not a coincidence. This is a message to every independent voice and journalist in this country. Do not criticize, do not condemn, else you will have to pay the price. The moment you start asking questions, either the Income Tax Department will pay you a visit, or maybe the Enforcement Directorate or the CBI will come knocking. The idea is to intimidate and threaten you into submission. In this case, the BBC has promised to cooperate with authorities. They're hopeful of resolving the situation as soon as possible. But the BJP is in no mood for any resolutions. The party is calling the BBC the most corrupt and nonsensical news company in the world. Listen in.
यहाँ पे कोई भी एजेंसी हो, आईटी हो, इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट, चाहे जांच एजेंसियां हो, ये वो पिंजरे का तोता नहीं रही हैं जो सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने कांग्रेस पार्टी की सरकार को फटकार लगाई थी। बीबीसी के अगर कृत्य देखें, जिसके उदाहरण मैं आपके समक्ष अभी पेश करूंगा, तो ये पूरे विश्व की सबसे भ्रष्ट बकवास कॉरपोरेशन हो गई है। और दुख की बात यह है कि बीबीसी का प्रोपेगेंडा और कांग्रेस का एजेंडा एक साथ मेल खाता है।
Now, many BJP leaders have talked about the BBC's checkered past in India. They were banned, after all, twice in the last century, once in 1970 and again in 1975 during the emergency. But that argument simply does not work here. Three wrongs don't make a right. Banning or blocking or raiding cannot be a government's legitimate response to any news organization, let alone the response of the world's largest democracy. By raiding the BBC today, the centre has revealed how insecure and vengeful it can get, and not to mention petty as well. If you look at India's press freedom ranking, the picture is very clear. We rank 150 out of 180 countries. That's simply not acceptable for a democracy. Last year, the Delhi police had raided the offices of the Vire's founders. The year before that, there were raids on Bharat Samachar, on Bhaskar as well. So the broader message is very clear. If you agree with the government, you thrive. If you don't, you will face raids and so-called surveys. Let me go straight across to our reporters. Before we go to our guest, Bhavtosh is joining us from the BBC's Delhi office. We are also being joined by Abhishek, who is joining us from the BBC's Mumbai office. I'm coming to you first, Bhavtosh. You track agencies for us. Help our viewers understand, what exactly is the charge against the BBC when the IT department says that they have been flouting profit and pricing norms for years now? What does that mean exactly?
Well, in layman's term, BBC has its Indian operation for a very long time, Shreya, and ideally it should have kept its books of record for scrutiny, and they should have shown in book of records that expenditure it was incurring, it's in proper place, and that royalty that it was paying to the parent company, that's BBC headquarters in London, it's in proper shape. But here the question is about the profit that was being generated according to income tax initial assessment was being diverted to its parent company. In many ways, the charges are very similar to what was happening in case of Chinese mobile phone. Remember, that investigation also started with income tax and it landed up in the doorsteps of Enforcement Directorate, where it eventually led to freezing of bank accounts of various Chinese mobile phone manufacturers. They then went to the high courts and challenged that. Now here we are outside the BBC headquarters in New Delhi. It's now over 7 hours, and Income Tax Department has said that the profit that was being generated by BBC was not being shown to the Income Tax Department. The question here is whether Income Tax Department is right or wrong, because the initial information that we have gathered at Times Network is source-based information. It has not been released officially. It's not there at PIB press release. BBC on its part have said that they always cooperated with the Income Tax Department. Now at the BBC New Delhi office, the phones have been switched off. We tried reaching out to the BBC staffers. What we have gathered is that cloning of phones and electronic gadgets are being done, but it's the timing that will be questioned by everyone. As you rightly said, that the documentary was being released. It was in fact released globally, though it's blocked here in India. Digitally it's blocked here, but many will question, not only opposition, but many will question the timing. It comes in a year when India will be hosting G20 summit.
Okay, Bhavtosh. So what you're telling us is that you've tried to speak to people inside the BBC office. Obviously, their phones have been taken away, so it's a little difficult getting in touch with them. But the BBC on their part, Bhavtosh, has said that they hope that the issue will be resolved soon. Let me go across to Abhishek. Abhishek, you're joining us from the BBC's Mumbai office. Are the raids over? Do they still continue?
See, firstly, as the IT department has pointed out, it is surveys which are being conducted at important Delhi and Mumbai, and it's been more than 6 hours now, since 11 a.m. around 10 to 12 IT officials along with Mumbai police have come over here at the office, and suspected tax evasion in gathering of electronic evidences, documentary evidences, and most precisely the finance department where this survey is currently being conducted, and it's being more than 6 hours, and which is currently still going on, and it might take further time until the survey ends. And definitely, as the suspected tax evasion is the argument and the claims that has been made by the IT department, and several notices in past were issued to the BBC which they didn't revert. So that's the reason they have to do the survey, and after the survey there will be an assessment to that, and according to the assessment, if there is any fund diversion or if there are irregularities, a possible case will be registered in this regard. And definitely the timing is something which the political class is questioning at the moment, and we have seen how opposition as well as students, campuses, universities, colleges in past 1 month have to fight it out to watch that particular documentary, controversial, which is being showing the role of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the Gujarat riots is what that documentary has been questioning. So definitely, as we speak, the survey is still going on, and we will have to wait and watch out for how much more times or whether it will end in next few hours or not.
Okay.
Back to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll leave it there for the moment. Joining me now is Shiv Sena MP, Priyanka Chaturvedi. She's joining us on the broadcast from Mumbai. Priyanka, you say in your tweets that you're completely not surprised by these surveys or raids that have taken place at BBC offices. Why do you say that?
I say that because there has been a consistent pattern in how the government has been functioning over the years as far as press freedom is concerned. And we have hit the bottommost rank of our press freedom index as well. We are at 150 out of 180 countries. We are ranked at 150. So I think that in itself speaks about the intolerance the government has with regards to media questioning them. And BBC specifically more so, because it is a UK-based media company. Second being that they started to show a documentary series about starting from 2002 onwards, and the change of government and as the Prime Minister's role in governance. So that did not show the Prime Minister, who was former Chief Minister of Gujarat, in a good way. So they have gone and shown their intolerance to that, by banning the documentary, by using some emergency powers, B, now raiding their offices to kind of scare them into submission. So that in itself speaks about how intolerant they are with regards to freedom of speech and freedom of press. And if you remember, in the BBC documentary, he said, my biggest failure has been I could not control the media. And he has proved that he now controls the media, and he does what he wants, when he wants, how he wants, by using these agencies.
But the IT department is saying don't call these raids. These are simply surveys. They are also claiming that norms have been flouted by the BBC for years now. Do you buy that?
Absolutely not. What stopped them from acting on BBC for so many years that they speak of? And if they had been seeing some kind of, non-cooperation coming from the BBC as far as accounting is concerned, as far as filing documentation is concerned, what stopped them from asking them and seeking those from BBC? The timing itself is so clear. You ban the documentary, then you go all out and you try and defame the BBC. We may agree, disagree with that documentary. Personally, even I haven't seen the documentary because not that a foreign media channel will show us what happened in 2002 when we are aware of what happened in 2002. But my only feeling is that going overboard, trying to stop something, only brings more attention, more focus to this documentary, which has led to these IT raids. And if the country knows, even a child in this country knows how agencies are being misused, whether you look at the IT, ED, CBI, and various other agencies. All I'd like to say here is history will remember their complicity in trying to undermine democracy and constitutional principles and undermine their own role in upholding justice where it was needed to be done.
You know, BBC is one of the biggest media houses in the world. Raids on an international media house, will they, in your mind, have repercussions as far as domestic media is concerned as well?
Domestically, we have been seeing repeatedly how media freedom has been crushed. Our rankings show that. And how journalists who are really pursuing the cause of holding the government to account are suppressed, they are called anti-national, they are given various terms, they are demonized, they are also mocked at through using various agencies. IT raids have become the norm. ED opening up files has become the norm. So the domestic media is more or less, except for the independent media, which is through online platforms, we see some activity happen there. Otherwise, more or less, they have pushed them into submission. Now we're seeing the same project being carried forward through international news channels, international news agencies, which I think will obviously attract attention of the global, people globally, trying to understand just how democratic are we in trying to understand, in trying to ensure that we have freedom of speech and expression in this country. So it will bring more focus back to India and how India looks at itself as a democratic nation which talks about freedom of speech.
And the Congress is
G20 does raise questions about the idea behind this.
Okay, but the Congress is saying this is undeclared emergency. Now, you know, the BJP or any other party can simply turn back at them and say, well, you banned the BBC too during emergency. So the Congress saying that this is undeclared emergency, is that a bit of a stretch?
So there was a very declared emergency where many channels were banned, media freedom was crushed, opposition was crushed, everything. I mean, and we have spoken about it umpteen number of times, and Mrs. Gandhi faced the ire of the people, the wrath of the people, and she was voted out. And then we also tweak the constitution to ensure that such a problem does not arise again, where powers become so powerful that they crush what democracy stands for. So we've tweaked that constitution. We've ensured that emergency does not apply in this nation again. But what is happening, and I would also not be stretching it too far by calling it undeclared emergency, and it's a word which I borrow from Shreya Dhoundial, who had mentioned this for the very first time. And when an undeclared emergency means is that where there is a normalcy, it shows that you are a democratic nation, you speak about democratic values, you speak about constitutional norms, but at every given point in time, you're undermining those very norms and principles and ensuring that the citizenry lives in fear, the media lives in fear, agencies live in fear, and they work only on the basis of the powers that be and the centralization of power that exists. So that in itself is something which I would call a situation like an emergency, but is going undeclared.
Okay, Priyanka, we leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast. Anurag Naidu is an author. He's joining us on the broadcast as well. Ashustosh is a political analyst. Ashutosh, let me come to you first. There are enough and more people who will say that the BBC doesn't see anything good in India. During COVID, their entire reporting was negative. Then they had to go ahead in a year when India is hosting the G20, go ahead and put this rather unflattering documentary on Prime Minister Modi and his role in the Gujarat riots. And broadcast it in 2 series, etc., etc. So the BBC essentially comes with an agenda, and if we are calling out that agenda, why have a problem with it? Do you think these raids are a response to that rather than any tax ghotala that the BBC may have done or may not have done?
Then shut BBC. That can be the answer. See, the matter of fact is that even your channel can be called that carrying an agenda against the government or any against any government. So the freedom of the press is the cardinal principle of democracy. And if a government cannot tolerate freedom of press, cannot tolerate the criticism of the press, cannot tolerate a global brand like BBC, what it has done. You might agree or disagree with the content of the BBC film on the Gujarat riots, but is it the way to teach them a lesson? I think the government has gone too far, and this is quite shocking and dangerous, because this is an attempt to give message to each and everybody that if BBC is not safe, then no news organization in this country is safe. And if anybody indulges in any kind of criticism or disagree with the government or tries to criticize the government, then one has to face the consequences. I think this is an attempt, and which has to be criticized. Otherwise, there will be no freedom of press in this country. The freedom of press in this country is already under jeopardy. There's a serious threat to the freedom of press in this country, and no wonder that India has gone from is now occupying the 150th place out of 180 country. Look at the world. India has a proud legacy of democracy, has a proud legacy of freedom of expression. There has been aberration also, and I can understand that, because BJP always goes back and say, look what Mrs. Gandhi has done. And Mrs. Gandhi has done, the people of the country have taught them a lesson. And that's no alibi, because if Mrs. Gandhi has done, the Congress party has done, so I will also do. Is that an argument which stands the scrutiny of? I don't think so. The matter of fact is, there is a very dangerous trend, and I just want to remind the two judgment which has been given by the courts. On 12th July 2022, the Supreme Court has that India cannot become a police state. Again, on 3rd October 2020, the Chennai High Court has said India should never become a police state. So if the courts have also realized that Indian state apparatus is turning into a police state, then one can understand. And if any police state, whether it is, I'm not saying that India has become a police state, but there are strong trends, and it is going in that direction. Anybody who tries to criticize the government has to face the music, and that's the sad part of it.
Anurag Naidu, people in public life need to have a thick skin. Yes, there was, look, I've not seen the documentary. I don't know whether, Ashutosh has. I have not seen the Modi question. I do not know if it is a hit job on the... Okay, you've seen it. Now, I don't know whether it's... I've not seen it, Ashutosh, so I cannot say whether it is a hit job on the Prime Minister or not. Even if it is a hit job on the Prime Minister. Is this how mature democracies behave? By silencing any criticism that comes your way.
Shreya, let me say this. There is no evidence when Ashutosh is, in my view, trying to peddle a narrative here, just because the timing is so that some days back we had some allegations made on the film. I don't want to talk about the film, but why we're trying to peddle a narrative when there is an allegation of a financial wrongdoing categorically being stated? This is just a survey. I'm surprised to see you guys showing unprecedented allegiance and unprecedented emotional connection with the BBC. With all due respect, I don't want to undermine the credentials of BBC as a news institution. But what are we trying to do here across pan-India? The opposition, as if they were hungry to have some kind of a news bite, and all of us have come, I don't want to take names, Shreya, but they have come, including political parties that are Shiv Sena, political parties. If it was only for people like Ashutosh, who are independent journalists, who have the society in their mind, that's a different thing. But what are we trying to give? We are giving space to people like Mava Moitra, people like Priyanka Chaturvedi, coming and saying for what? We've always seen, this is just a survey, we've always known BBC to have shown very pervasive and very hostile approach towards India. And this is not we, this is their own journalists. When they say the journalists from the UK have said that BBC's approach towards India has not been fair. This survey, what are we trying to say? Is it BBC's Cayman Island, where we don't have any right to question any institutions to do a money laundering and any other irregularities in financial, approach? I'm not saying there is, but let's wait for the authorities to say India has a very strong regulatory authorities, and they are showing their independence and they are showing their right approach. And just share one very important objection. At the start of the show, you've said, BBC is an institution funded by the British people. Is it white supremacy? Are they supreme and the people of Britain fund a news agency? What has this got to do with the white supremacy? Ashustosh said 150 out of 180 ranking in the media. Why should I go by the standards set by any other international institutions? Your own leader, Rahul Gandhi, or any other leader that you support, they all go and say, praise China, and China has very great independence towards the speech, or freedom of speech towards the press. We know all of that story. Why are we being so cynical towards certain things? And why are we trying to
want to be China, is it now?
And peddle narratives here? No,
but is China,
Anurag
Naidu, is China the country we need to emulate?
I'm saying people are so obsessed in Delhi, the chief minister of Delhi or the...
Well, if we want to be India, then we can't behave like China,
India should be India. Why should we talk about a rating? My whole point is 150 out of 180 are the ratings that are set by the international, whatever agency you are.
Because the ratings, Anurag Naidu, are showing you the mirror.
Why?
No, don't go by any standards. Create your own standards. The standards of the press in any case are so low in this country.
Shreya,
Ashutosh, would you want to...
We have so many languages.
See, I think...
I think Ashutosh wants to come in. Yeah, go ahead.
I accept what Anurag has said, that I peddle a narrative. This statement defines everything. That if you are speaking the language of BJP, if you are speaking the language of Modi, if you are speaking the language of Amit Shah, then you are truly an independent journalist in the country. If you are not in agreement with him, then you are peddling a narrative. Then you are a supporter of Rahul Gandhi. Then you are a supporter of BBC. Then you are a supporter of international conspiracy. I think how long these people will go on talking something like this? India is a very mature democracy. We used to say this. India is a great nation. We used to say this. And if there is a criticism, take it on your shoulder, man. Why are you so worried about this? About one BBC document? I have seen.
Take it on the chin.
No, I have seen both the parts of the BBC documentary. There's hardly anything which we had not known. We had known everything. I think the Prime Minister of the country has lost faith in the people of the country for the simple reason because he believed that the people will believe BBC more than the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has given you clean chit. So have faith in Supreme Court and have faith that the people will believe what the Supreme Court has said. People will not believe what the BBC has said. But unfortunately, the truth is very, very different. Truth is sometimes it hits you where it should hit. And the BBC documentary has hit where it should hit. But my point is very simple. I think today we are moving in a direction where all kinds of narrative will come to haunt the government, and this is the Modi government is pursuing the same logic as Mrs. Gandhi used to talk about in 1974-75. Every criticism was taken as a foreign hand, foreign hand. I see that the Modi government is a carbon copy of Mrs. Indira Gandhi. There's hardly any difference between them. If Mrs. Gandhi imposed emergency in the country through constitutional means, I think the Modi government should also come out openly and say, we are imposing an emergency. At least we should not have any complaint.
I'm out of time. We'll leave it there. This debate continues at 8 p.m. this evening as well. Anurag, completely out of time. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the broadcast. It's a debate, as I said, that will continue not just here at Mirror Now, but across networks. 8 p.m. is something that will take up this issue as well. Thank you very much. I'm slipping into a quick break on the show. There's more coming up on the